Happy Women's Month, everybody, and welcome to a powerful session that we're going to be having. We are having different women coming across from different industries just to come and share their knowledge and journey with us. This is the first of the series that we're having. We're going to be having 5 of them throughout the month of August. We are here because we're celebrating women for who they are and what they bring to the table in different spaces, in different industries. We are Bahaka. Bahaka, we champion big picture. We champion solutions. We have provided solutions to our many, many different clients. And today, one key thing comes to mind for a time such as this. And that is for us impact. How do we impact the next generation of leaders? How do we ensure that the next generation of leaders is equipped enough and can actually take us to the next level that we need to be? Definitely the future is different from what it is going to be. Awesome. I'm the head of internal audit and risk and governance, and my name is Tumelo Mahusi. And I never walk alone. I have a co-host who I'm going to be sharing the space with, and I'm going to quickly just allow her to come through.
Great. Welcome and thank you everybody for joining us on this space today. My name is Matlagonalo Mogapi and I am the managing director of Bahaka Group. Bahaka is a Setswana term for champions. And at Bahaka, we pride ourselves as being champions of big picture thinking. We pride ourselves as being leaders of change. And hence we are here today to say, let's come together to welcome in this month, but to also inspire the next generation of women leaders. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Today's topic, we are talking to the evolution of women in finance, past, present, and the future. We are delving into how women have shaped the space in the past, how women are currently shaping the space, and what the future has in store for us as women, and how can we position ourselves and shape what the future of finance leadership looks like. To go into this topic today, we have two amazing guests who will be joining us. We have Ms. Thenjiswa Mbewu from Mbewu. Thenjiswa is the co-founder and current director of Mbewu. And we have Ropfiwa Sithubi-Buthelezi, who is the engagement partner in financial services at one of the big four multinational audit firms, KPMG. The ladies will take us through their journey as it has evolved, but they will also share wisdom on how they get here and how we can position ourselves as women to get here today. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you so much, ladies, for that warm welcome.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thenjiswa, what is Mbewu? What is Mbewu? Can you just in a full bio, introduce yourself to, I guess, to everybody joining us here today, and let's talk more as to what is Mbewu.
Okay, so Mbewu is a financial services provider. I think a lot of us have heard that term in a lot of adverts in the radio and TV that we often hear from the likes of your Holland and Discovery and all these other names when it comes to insurance in the industry. So what does that mean, Mbewu being a financial services? So in our industry, we've got 4 types of licenses. And Mbewu currently sits on what we call license 1, right? An FSP that sits in license 1, it means that we provide, we the go-to client people. We are the people that give advice to the clients in terms of product selections, whether it be pure insurance like your life insurance, medical aid, or investment decisions, local or offshore. We are the go-to people when you are looking for a financial service. And I think what is very exciting and what people don't know, that, having a broker, it's one of those services that actually as a client that you don't even pay for. I think a lot of people still don't know that in our industry, and we see a lot of people making wrong investment decisions because they think they can do it on their own or just solely based on the information that they read on the internet. So there's other license categories like your Cat 2 to 4. So those are the licenses where now we start actively managing assets and influencing investment decisions. But MEPT is not there as yet because there's different requirements for that. There's different liquidity requirements that we have to fulfill before we get into that stage, which we think we can maybe delve into a little bit later. But really, the barriers to entry in our industry, especially in the licensing way we are sitting as MEPT, very low, right? As long as you've got the necessary qualifications and experience in terms of that. Because we don't manage clients' monies directly. We manage it through the insurers that we are working with. So your money leaves your account and it goes straight to the insurer, not to MEPT at this particular stage. So that's just a summary of what MEPT does. Started in 2018. We've survived COVID. We are very proud of that. And we really just keep growing from there.
Awesome. Insurance it sounds very technical, Thenji. You're talking liquidity, you're talking different categories. What inspired you to get into this industry?
Very personal, actually. It's a very personal story. So where I grew up, my family, we've always been in business, right? Informal business, as you know. So my mom and my dad, they ran multiple types of businesses, and I call it, I like the fact that they ran different business models, right? Whenever one model was not working, they would move to another. The story, of township businesses, your fruit and veggies. Then from there, you move to clothing. Then from there, so we ran those type of businesses. And we really did very well, very, very, very well in terms of cash flow. But one thing that we never did in my family, which we were not aware of, was to actually invest, was to actually leverage off insurance. For example, when my father died, the business, it's almost like it died with him. I don't know. I think there was a certain luck that came with him being around because everything just, went down after his passing. Then, and throughout life, then I start asking myself, from someone who came from a very liquid cash flow environment, how come I had to take a student loan to go to school? How come I had to struggle so much, just to call myself the chartered accountant that I am today? And really one of the pitfalls and the gaps that were there in our home was not understanding insurance, was not understanding investment, because there's a lot of things we could have leveraged, from the insurance industry to make sure that we don't just create cash flow for now, but actually invest better and also, tap into other products that can make our business last longer. So that was really the inspiration, just seeing that transition from my dad and, after his passing. And also, just also very personal, my sister had a stroke when she was 22, I think. And it was quite a very tough time for us because, as the person who gets disabled, there's a lot of change that must happen in the family, and we do not have the finances to finance, that type of change. And tapping into the insurance industry, as much as sometimes it can look like we are selling doom and gloom, but really it can really impact your life on a daily basis. And disability cover is like probably it was 200 Rand back then. Could we not afford it? We could. Did we take a disability cover for the whole family? We didn't. So MEPT is born out of that, and our vision really is to really become part of our communities, educate as many people about the industry, and we believe there's a lot of value in it.
Wow, that's so insightful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Ropfiwa, a whole partner at a multinational firm. Tell us, take us through the journey. I'm sure there's so many people that are looking at you like, how do we go and be a partner at KPMG? Take us through your journey and tell us how it all out.
Sure. Thanks, Dumelo. I'll do my best to summarize it and hit on some of the key milestones and points for me that landed me where I am today. And I must say, on day one, when I walked into KPMG for articles, if you had asked me, would you end up being partner, probably would have had a lengthy conversation, which I've concluded with a no. But be as it may, went through articles in the Joburg office in financial services, specializing in banking at the time. I made the decision to move down to Cape Town post articles as a newly qualified as a supervisor at the time. And the Cape Town environment, financial services environment, is more asset management driven or asset management focused. So that was also a pivot point for me in that I was now coming into a new industry, which I hadn't had experience in throughout my articles. And that's probably one of the first significant pivot points for me, in that the lessons learned at that point around the importance of upskilling yourself for your own personal growth and for your own personal gain outside of the structures and the support that the firm provides is very key. I had to spend extra time outside of reviewing audit files, understanding the industry, understanding, how does an asset management entity run? What does it entail? What are some of the key processes that are involved in that environment? Cape Town was a growth opportunity. That's the main reason why I decided to move down there. I think a lot of you that may be familiar with the Cape Town environment know that from a transformation perspective, it is still a bit of a struggle and a battle, especially when it comes to African females in the city and in finance specifically. They're far and few in between. So as much as that presents some struggle, but for me, I also saw an opportunity to grow, just based on the limited number of Black females in the industry. I stayed with KPMG until I was senior manager, so I grew through the ranks, and again through that process, learning the importance of upskilling yourself, as well as the importance of the networks that you make along the way. So the relationships that you start and form and maintain throughout the process are key. I got to around February 2018, although the decision probably was coming since 2017. I had always had a bit of a passion for education, a passion which was born at KPMG, in that it started off as a challenge to myself to upskill myself when it comes to public speaking and educating people, which I got involved in training in the firm, and that actually grew a sense of wanting to impart knowledge, as well as a sense of wanting to give back to those that are coming behind us within the CA profession. So I made the decision to go into full-time academia in February 2018. I went to my alma mater. I joined the University of Cape Town's College of Accounting at that time, lecturing. And again, the importance of networks and people that you connect with came in handy there, in that as much as I was in the academic space, probably by the end of about 6 to 8 months, as to my core responsibilities when it comes to lecturing, I got to a point where I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. What's the next challenge? And it was at that point where I was in contact with one of the previous partners that had retired from KPMG, who then reached out to me about an opportunity to be on a board of a listed entity. And again, this is someone who wasn't very generous in their compliments when I worked with them, but the impact of my work and my work ethic clearly stayed with them, to the extent where when the position came up, he thought of me and he reached out to me. And I ended up being on the board of Signia for about 3 years. I also got involved with the Urban Inspections Committee at the time. I say that's probably a big reason why I've returned to audit, in that it kind of Give me a bit of exposure in terms of what's happening within the profession. What are some of the key challenges? What are some of the core areas which are presenting to be a challenge for audit professionals as a whole? Fast forward 3 years after joining academia, I got the opportunity to return to KPMG. I got into conversations, and a partnership was put on the table. And yeah, just balancing growth opportunities in academia, as well as with the non-executive directorships, as well as the level of in-depth growth that I stand to gain by coming back into the profession and engaging with business leaders and getting to grow with much more depth. I felt this was the better option for me for where I am in my career. So I made the return to audit in January 2021 as a partner. And yeah, that's my journey without taking up too much time.
Awesome. Oh my word. Thank you so much. Oh, that was amazing. Ropfiwa, I would have thought you would move to Cape Town because, I mean, it is Cape Town. It's holiday.
Of course, there's the wine farms, there's a mountain and the ocean. That did play a role. But on the professional side, it also did present a number of opportunities as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and Thenji, also you are from Cape Town. Like so the family, your family is in Cape Town as well. So we have Cape Townians in the house today. Ropfiwa, I think you alluded to it just a little bit, ladies. Transformation question, more importantly, the woman question. It is Women's Month after all. Can we maybe just delve into just what the industry looks like in terms of women representation? Both the financial service industry or business at large, or where we are at, are we well represented? And how can we get more foot soldiers? How can we get more representation in the industry at a leadership, of course, at a leadership roles, in leadership roles? Maybe yeah, you can get us started, Thenji.
Okay, thank you, Nolo. I just want to read this straight from the World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report of 2021. It says it will take 267 years for the gap between men and women globally to close at the current rate of reform. So we are still very far, from a global perspective and also an industry perspective. But we mustn't forget that we've seen some movements and some changes, I think, just across all industries in the past 5 to 10 years. We're seeing female businesses being preferred in terms of supply opportunities, in terms of funding opportunities, and also in the corporate space, we are seeing a lot of women, being promoted in senior management and leadership positions. So we do commend those movements. However, these movements are still not very meaningful. And what do I mean by that? There's a lot of pay gaps, that are still identified in the market. You've got this woman who's the head of ABC department, but still earning a little bit less, if not much more less than their male counterparts. So we're seeing movements in terms of stats, definitely, but we are asking for more meaningful movements where women, the contribution of women is recognized equally to the contribution of men, if not even more, because, as women, we bring different sets of skills to the work environment, work or business or boardrooms. So from where I'm sitting, there's movement, but it needs to be much more meaningful. We need to introduce those policies in the workplace that favor women. And I think there's a lot of women that feel like, they still get judged in the work environment because the whole culture is wrong. And there's a whole notion of work never ends. And for us as women, work has to end at some point, if that end is 7 p.m. or 5 p.m. So those are some of the challenges that we encounter. as women as we move across different spaces. But we do recognize that there is some change, but it's still not as meaningful as it should be.
Great. Thank you, Thenji. Thank you for that insight. Ropfiwa, what is your take on transformation, especially having more women in leadership roles?
Yeah, thanks, Nolo. I 100% agree with Thenji's sentiments in that although there's been progress, hence why, people like myself, Thenji, find themselves where they are, but we are far from where we need to be. And I think my experience and challenges faced is, yes, there's acceleration programs to get women into spaces and around boardroom tables. But for as long as you're still the only or one of two, the level of influence that you can have is limited, because you're dealing with mindsets and ways that are ingrained in, people are used to doing things in a certain way. It will take a while to change things if you're a single individual, a single of 10, for example, versus where if you've got a lot more like-minded people within the same room that are pushing and challenging the status quo, the effect of that representation will be much more felt quicker than having a single person representing in those spaces.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So insightful. We're getting so much from just the knowledge that you're sharing. One thing that you share in common beyond Cape Town is that you actually are in the financial industry. And I can imagine there's a lot of challenges out there, right? So the idea right now is maybe just to explore and tell us more on what tools and skills do you need to have in place, skills and tools that we need to have in place as a woman to actually navigate the challenges that are there within the space.
I think especially as a like you were saying, Ropfiwa, like you find yourself that you are one of 10 or 2 of 10, that's quite a difficult sort of environment to be in, to be heard, voice, like for your presence to be felt in a room. So maybe Ropfiwa, you can take us on that. What skills and tools does one need to navigate?
Yeah, sure. I think there's probably a number of things that come to mind. One of the most important ones being what I mentioned earlier about your willingness to learn and to adapt. Financial services already has this connotation or this perception of being complicated, and it is, like, because you're dealing usually with complicated topics and areas, whether it be on the audit side or on the business side of things. There is complexity attached, and but it's not impossible to learn if you have an open mind and you willing to invest in yourself, in learning, taking up extra reading, whether it's enrolling for courses to make sure that you educate yourself and upskill yourself, then it puts you in a much better position just in terms of confidence as well, to be able to engage in conversations and to talk around that table, because that's a starting point. We need to be, having our voices heard, not just sitting around the table. Actually, this makes me think about a comment that someone made around even the whole notion of transformation and accelerating women into these spaces. This was a direct question that someone asked me, like, don't you take offense at the fact that, you put there because you're a Black female? And I'm like, no, I don't. The question is, what do I do with that opportunity once I'm there? What am I doing with the fact that I was put there as a Black female? Am I remaining just a face, or am I actually contributing and making my presence and my views felt whilst I'm there? And that will come with, I need to upskill myself in certain instances. It's not always easy. I'm not an outgoing personality either. So it does take me being intentional about challenging myself in terms of, engaging and being active in such spaces.
Great. I like that, being intentional. Thenji?
Yeah, so I think I'll just highlight two key things that Ropfiwa already highlighted in the previous question. The importance of relationships and maintaining those relationships, because the world is truly moving around relationships. So those are very key in order to navigate in the industry, because you need people speaking on your behalf in those difficult spaces where you can't you can't penetrate, by yourself. So that is very key. And also affiliations. I know there's a lot of, affiliations these days that even get so exhausting, just to decide, which organization, do I join? Which organization do I affiliate with? There's a lot, but you just need to be a little bit more strategic and understand what is it that I'm actually looking for from my networks in general. Then that will inform as to which organization that you can affiliate with, because they do assist some of these organizations to help us navigate these tough spaces. But on a personal level, definitely, again, what Ropfiwa has mentioned, work ethic. Your work ethic really does speak for you. That dedication, even when you feel like you're not being recognized, but someone in the end, will recognize you. So that's very important. And skill sets. Ropfiwa alluded to personality, and it's such a big thing. I can't emphasize enough the ability to change your personality for success. Because I think a lot of us, we hang on to this natural personality that we have. I'm not outspoken, I'm shy, I'm this, but you actually have to change your personality to gear yourself, for success, to gear yourself for certain opportunities. And there's definitely a lot of tools out there. It doesn't mean you're not going to be authentic, you're trying to be someone else. But what I'm saying is that you can't sit on the notion that I'm shy, therefore I cannot speak to people. It's not going to work. So I found that I've had to really transform my personality, guys, and speak even in that moment where I feel like I'm so intimidated, I can't speak. But we need our voices being heard out there. And just mastering that. I think constantly just evaluating what changes can you make on a personal level so that you can move forward.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that relationship point again, Thenji.
Yeah.
You just triggered a thought, and just to add some flavor and color to it. I think we've all been, especially if if you've gone through the CA training route, you've all been in those spaces where white male counterparts are sitting there connecting. CEO, partner, or senior manager meets for the first time, or meets after a long while, and they connect so easily. I think that has made me realize, as much as financial services is a big industry, it's also quite small. In that it's built on networks. Like, everybody knows someone. Whether you're in banking, there's a network within banking. There's asset management, there's a network. Insurance is a network, and that element of relationships, and you never know when those relationships are going to come in handy further down the line. So whether you're sitting in articles and you're in that process of building new professional relationships, you need to take those as serious as this could be my business opportunity one day, and nurture them and maintain them, because they really do come a long way in the future.
Sure. Yeah, we cannot really remain the same. We must change. I like the idea of actually adapting all the time. And as we know, everything rises and falls on leadership. Team 4 makes it quite clear that the tone of every organization is set at the top. So, ladies, maybe let's get to the leadership question. What is leadership to you? And as a woman, where you and then Thenji can follow.
Sure. Yeah, that's such an important question. But for me, leadership, when I hear the word, one of the first things that come to mind is integrity. In that there needs to be an element of, leading people. You're leading something, and in most instances, you're leading people. It needs to be done with a level of integrity and transparency that everybody that you're leading can literally look up to you, and even when you're not in the room, speak that you are someone that upholds certain values and standards without a doubt. Again, I think the other association for me from a leadership perspective as a woman is that we carry unique characteristics as women, and that naturally, just by nature, we nurture us. We tend to care about people. We tend to care about people's well-being, and I think that element is what sets us apart as women leaders, in that in any corporate environment, we typically thinking beyond just the numbers. We are thinking around, okay, cool, from a people well-being perspective, are my people taken care of? What is the sustainability of their well-being, etc.? And that brings in an important element into the well-being of the organization as a whole. So yeah, that would be my take on it.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Thenji, maybe what's in there as well?
Yeah, definitely echo that. So I'll just add maybe the main key thing for me in leadership, it's empowerment. And I always sort of like to summarize my leadership ideology in a common metaphor that we all know. What is it? Give a man a fish, you will feed him for one day, but teach him how to catch a fish and you will feed that person forever. So for me, that what, empowerment stands for. So I always ask myself that question, am I empowering more people as a leader? Am I taking along more people with me? And the way I do that is to make sure that, I'm not just giving people the fish, whether within my organization or outside of my organization, that I'm constantly, just empowering others by sharing the knowledge that I have, and in doing so, duplicating myself, if I so to speak. As leaders, we want copies, better copies, I guess, of us, and especially the people that we are leading.
Yeah, I like that, Thenji. I like the idea of copies, because I think, and there's so much you get from empowerment. You're empowering other people, which is such a selfless act. But in response, you are also getting back something, because you're getting a copy of yourself, meaning that you get to split the work and delegate, and things just get done. Yeah. Geez, wow. Thank you, ladies. And I think what I'm getting from you is leadership means integrity, transparency, empowerment as well, which is so beautiful. And I think it leads me to our next question, on creating accountability systems, and I think if we hear, like when we talk about the state of our country, right, and where we are at, most people always talk about the root cause of why we are here today, being the vacuum of good leaders, good leadership. And I think the elements of good leaderships that you guys have mentioned are so powerful. But now, how do we take that and we create better accountability systems, in inclusions of just I think generally in business, in government, in in all systems? How do we create better accountability systems where we hold each other, where we hold others accountable for their actions?
Okay.
Yeah, I think you are maybe. Oh, Thenji.
I will quote from a
Yes.
very a simple line that I really resonate with. I don't know by who, but it could be one of these famous pastors or leaders I listen to on YouTube. So it's basically at any point in your life, whether you regard yourself as a leader or not, right? You've got to have 3 people beneath you that you are pulling up, right? So that could be in terms of mentorship, it could be in terms of support, some sort of support, but people that you are pulling up, so that they intentionally, pulling up those people so that they can get to where you are. Then you have 3 people who are your peers, basically at the same level as you, people that you bounce ideas with. Then 3 people who are above you. For me, so those are the people now that are pulling you up, So for me, I think that is the best accountability system. And I think all of us as women, at whatever level that we are or stage in our careers, if we can just form this big, a circle where Thenji has the 3 people below, same and above, I think we could, just achieve a lot, because as women, I think we're not doing enough. And we speak about these things, but we don't action them. I think that's one of the things that is hindering, the growth of women, because we're just not doing these things enough.
Enough,
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure.
I like that. I like that a lot because there's always eyes on you. And it talks to what Ropfiwa said about integrity as well. I mean, integrity is doing the right thing, whether somebody's watching or not.
Yeah.
But also just when you have an accountability sort of circle around you, you always know that somebody is watching, on how you move. Ropfiwa, you want to
Yeah, I
come
think
in?
sure. Yeah, Thenji has said a lot of nuggets there, which I 100% agree with. I think the only thing that I would add is probably also changing our perception of feedback, how we relate to feedback. And I think that's something just by human nature. We don't like hearing things that are not nice, but like there's literally, if you change your perspective in terms of if I intentionally solicit feedback from the people around me, so once I've formed those circles of the people that are around me, there will be a trusted few that you can turn to for honest feedback. I think feedback is probably one of the best tools to grow you as a person, as a leader, whether it's coming from people that you lead or people that are leading you or people that are your peers, because it almost holds up the mirror to say, cool, as a leader or as an individual, this is where you're at. And we shouldn't shy away from getting that perspective from those around us, because we all have blind spots ultimately. But having said that, I think one of my biggest, call it transitioning challenges from, being in a senior manager position to partnership is that you don't naturally get that feedback flow happening because you typically the leader on an engagement and you're not getting it, call it in the natural sense. And there's been an element of me needing to grow and provide myself feedback, like, so intentionally reflect on my delivery and ask myself, okay, cool, where I've done things well, celebrate it. Be like, yes, I got this. I totally rocked that conference or whatever. And where there's shortcomings or where I felt like I fell short, identify that and ask myself, what am I going to do about that to grow that area going forward? So feedback, yes, from people that are close around you, but also your own personal feedback on your call it on your servicing or your profession is also important.
And that's how we ensure that we grow all the time. Feedback is we get feedback from people and we grow all the time, and that's what we need all the time. But just to tap into that, right? Is there, as being a woman leader, do you feel like there are specific challenges that you face just as a woman leader that are not necessarily men challenges? So maybe let's speak to those naturally from a woman's perspective. As a leader, this is my challenge as a woman.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's the obvious ones. I know Thenji's going to come with the deep ones, so let me start with a bit of the obvious. Just around, like, if you just compare male, female leaders in an organization, women tend to have additional roles, especially in the home, significant homemaking roles. So therefore, our time is often caught between the time that we can spend in our professional environments versus the time we need to invest in our home environments. I always say to people that ask, I got married very late in life, and I'm grateful I had the opportunity to, as a single person, put a lot of time into my profession without feeling caught about, okay, I've got a husband and kids waiting at home. But that's not everybody's journey, and it does present a challenge, because you want a healthy family environment, a healthy family where you're investing time into your home relationships, which are more important than your professional relationships, actually. So I think the obvious one is just that balance. And I don't like the term work-life balance, but that work-life integration, how you integrate your work life and your home life to a harmonious, some form of harmonious point.
Thank you so much, Thenji.
Yeah, and I think actually, Ropfiwa, I think that's the biggest for all of us as women, because I was chatting to a friend recently, and you see some of these comments, very subtle, but if you really pay attention to that, you can really see that they mean something. And men who sit in very strategic positions really do consider, when it comes to putting women in positions, they do consider these issues of work-life balance. Whether you are married or not married, you might actually not get a position you deserve because you are married.
Yeah.
Sure.
And just going back to this conversation I was having with this person where their boss was actually offended that they were pregnant,
Sure.
and it came like as a very subtle, comment in a meeting, but it really gives you a picture of how disadvantaged we are as women, despite the fact that you can deliver, despite the fact that you've been in this organization for X number of years, but that's just that 1 year you fell, pregnant. It irritates something in the boardroom. And those things that they are quite real. In our lives as women. So definitely I feel our nature as women is a disadvantage on its own, because as a woman you are going to have a child at one day, and I think the second one for me, it will just, not being recognized enough. And this is not even at the leadership level, just even at the peer level, even the people that you are leading. I often see that there's much more respect to male leaders or male bosses, versus us, as women. So there's that as well. I mean, I think even in my own organization, I always say this, when people leave sometimes, for whatever reason, I'm the one who's always getting rude messages. My business partner, who's a male, has never gotten a single rude or bad encounter with any of our ex-employees. So that already tells you, the attitude towards female leaders, whether you've done something good or bad. So yeah. I think our nature, unfortunately, as being women, is a challenge.
So I see a lot of people resonating with that very idea. People are commenting and saying, and it's shocking that in 2023 we're able to express it like that. You think we'd be far ahead in terms of that. We shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So, okay.
This gets me thinking to one of the most topical things that we talk about of late, which is like, mental health for women leaders. It's as if, we just need to have like a therapist on call, because imagine the navigation or the work it takes to integrate, like Ropfiwa was saying, your sort of your life and make sure that everything is in harmonious balance, because we can't really achieve 100% balance. You can't have 50-50 of my personal and 50-50 of work. So I like it when you say integration and harmonious integration, because and also different seasons. I mean, when you're pregnant, you have to be more. You have a baby, like a small feeding baby.
Yeah.
So of course you go through seasons as well within that integration. Ladies, so let's get into more. We talked about a bit of the past, I guess, and the present now. How looking forward in our positions and industries that we're in, how do we see things evolving for us as women? I mean, we are coming in slowly. We are having platforms where we can actually talk about women issues and raise each other up and hold each other up. So of course, there's definitely impact. We are brewing something. So how do we see things transforming into the future? How do you see our industries transforming in the next 5 to 10 years? Challenges, changes, technology, opportunities, legislation, anything. How do we see the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. Sure. I can start. Yeah. Just from a audit profession perspective, there's been a lot of challenges in the recent past, and a lot of them impacting the future, and then the attraction or attractiveness of the profession to those that are still coming behind us. I mean, we saw recently the increase in fines that are being levied for misconduct, which is good. I'm not completely against that, because I think it holds a significant significant value in terms of driving the right level of accountability, etc. But for someone who's still sitting there as a student, it might be a deterrent. So which means we're going to have to work harder to attract young people into the profession for that reason and a number of others. So where do I see the future of auditing or the transformation of women within I'll speak to audit and financial services. I think as much as we've had initiatives that have contributed to the little bit of change that we've seen, there's still a need to continue with those initiatives. Back to the quotes that Thenji made earlier around, what those stats are looking like, and given what the projection is of what it would look like if we continue at the current rate, it's not enough. It's definitely not enough. I think there needs to be an additional level of intentionality in, as an individual, women in leadership, what are you doing to grow and to bring others alongside you to make sure that that future for the next 5 to 10 years looks different? So I think there's a responsibility for us as women in leadership to make sure that we, multiplying, not just in numbers and bringing in people, but also multiplying in terms of skills and sustainability of those individuals in the leadership positions. That would be my take on it.
Yeah, I definitely echo that, Ropfiwa. And just in terms of the future, us as women in general, just going back to what Ropfiwa was saying, getting the position because you're Black, because you're a Black female. And some people, they may view it as a negative, while there's actually a lot that you can do with that. So I think in the next 5 years, as women first, we need to accept that we're still gonna work 3 times hard to prove ourselves, just globally, which industry that you are. It's something that we really have to take it to heart and with grace, and understand that it's part of the process. We're trying to break this glass ceiling that has existed for decades and decades and decades. And unfortunately, we need to just accept that we are going to work 5-10 times harder, even in the next 10 years, to be able to achieve the type of female progression, women participation in big picture thinking we would that we would like to see in the future. So we're not just doing it for ourselves, but we're doing it for many other generations to come. So the insurance industry. So in our industry, we are doing quite great at the moment. Actually, we're very excited. There's a lot of changes that are happening, especially post-COVID. We've been growing because a lot of people are coming out of the season where they were very scared. I think people understand insurance much better post-COVID, because imagine then if you didn't have a health cover, it means you had to be in the queue in Barra for 5 days, for you to get assisted. So we're seeing a lot of positive movements in terms of just people understanding the industry and what it can do for them on a day-to-day. When it comes to legislation, we know there's NHI coming up, National Health Insurance. Personally, I'm very excited about it because it's all in the implementation. I won't delve deeper into it, but I think what NHI is trying to achieve. And for me, really, NHI is the same as UIF. So I don't know, a lot of people, they're quite negative about it, obviously from an implementation, because anything that involves our government, it comes with those challenges of corruption and but if we could successfully implement UIF as a country, we can definitely implement NHI successfully, because 90% of our population cannot afford medical care, good medical care. So from a legislation point of view, some of us, we're very excited about those type of initiatives like NHI that are coming up. And what we're seeing from an underwriting point of view, also improvement in terms of underwriting ratings. A lot of insurers now, they are really not sticking to the actuarial underwriting methods only. They are taking things like your lifestyle. We know, for example, vitality. There's a lot of changes that we've seen these days. Vitality even rewards you for meditation. So we're quite excited to see insurers starting to incorporate these things. And in particular, one of the things that I am hoping in the next 5 to 10 years we can achieve in the insurance is to distinguish between genetic diseases and genetic behaviors, because there's this whole talk in the health space that perhaps there's not a thing called a genetic disease. Maybe it's just genetic behaviors, because I cook exactly the same way my mom cooks. So if she had diabetes, I will have it, my child will have it. So those are some of the changes that we are excited about in the insurance. Some, obviously, there's a lot of technological enhancements that have to be implemented to make sure all of these processes are implemented smoothly.
I actually have a follow-up on that. Both of you are chartered accountants, right? And a lot of our industry, we do quite a lot of repetitive sort of work within our processes. And there's been this big talk that we accountants specifically will be replaced by machines, artificial intelligence. Are you guys scared of your own futures? Like because of technology and technological changes or improvements? How do you guys feel about the possibility of accountants and auditors as well being replaced? Thenji, even in your space, as a broker, what do you guys think?
Yeah, it's so funny. Actually, I have it in the last question about the vision, Nolo. I'm thinking about that very deeply before I sleep every day. Because changes are happening all over in our environment, and it's not a question of are we going to be. We are already, started replaced by the technology. And really, as part of maybe I'm just deviating now, but I was going as part of drafting our visions, those type of changes, we have to start thinking about them, the skill set that I have now, how relevant are they? Are they still going to be relevant in 10 years time? Not even in 10 years time, 2 to 10 years. And one of the things we were exploring in another platform was this thing of robotic surgeries. For example, that we are going into that space, where I'm going to walk in a hospital and my baby gets delivered by a machine, or I walk in, I need to do a procedure, and that procedure can be done, by the machine. So that's where we're going. So it is something that is very heavy in my mind, and not only from are we going, it's happening. It has already happened, and how do we respond? How do we reinvent ourselves?
And that's exactly my thought on that last part, Henry, in that technology is not something to fear. To answer your question directly, Nolo, I'm not scared, but I know there's going to be a need to reinvent myself in a way, and also to make sure that I'm continuing to add value, because ultimately it's the value add that clients will be after, that whichever stakeholders will be after. So in what way can you as a CA, in addition to the routine stuff and the process stuff, add value? There's a lot of things currently that still require judgment call. Are you showing up with those things? And also, I think there might be a lot of IT CA is born out of this, in the sense of a lot of us might actually get interested in the programming side of things. Are we actually then taking time to upskill ourselves and reinvent ourselves in that way? Go learn programming and go get involved on the programming side of things, because they're going to need accountants to program whatever logic that needs to be implemented for the process stuff. And we're already seeing it, like you say. I mean, even in the audit environment, a lot of firms, if not all firms, are currently doing electronical audits. There's a lot of data analytics tools that are incorporated into tools and methodology. So we're already seeing it. But again, the value comes in that additional value add that you bring as an individual around judgment areas and potential guidance in tricky gray areas for clients.
Yeah, thank you, Ropfiwa, for adding that, actually, because my thought is always like, it doesn't matter how things evolve. An accountant will still need to come and interpret the standards and build that into some form of formula, or or whatever programming, because the machine needs to know how to do these things. And we as we transition perhaps to being a technical accountant, you'll be the one who's doing the interpretation of the standards and building that into some form of machine. Thank you for that insight, ladies. Yeah.
Ideally, I think what I'm getting more than anything else is, in positioning ourselves, we really need to evolve. So ladies, maybe share in terms of your personal journey, how do you see yourself evolving? What is the vision looking like? What is your next 5 years looking like? What are you bringing into the table in the next coming years?
Thenji, your question.
The visionary. I feel like I should go so that it's not a tough act to follow after that, because I know she sleeps on these things and dreams about these things. So yeah, sure. I think probably my biggest weakness, which is also a strength, and this sounds like one of those beauty pageant answers, but I promise it's not, is I usually don't say no to opportunities. Like, you can come with the biggest ask, I will likely say yes, as overwhelming as it might be, because already the great things that have come out of those type of instances are always worth the while. I'll make an example where recently I had our CEO ask me to take on a task to lead one of our global accounts as a new partner. I was like, what? I'm new. I'm still, getting a feel for what day-to-day auditing looks like. But I was like, wait, actually, he thinks I'm capable. He wouldn't have asked me if he didn't think I was capable. Why am I doubting myself? What's the worst that could happen? Yes, I'll do it. That was my answer. And it's been one of the most growing opportunities for me since returning into audit. So there is a lot of other roles that are available to play outside of the day-to-day auditing. And those types of opportunities for me are what adds that level of growth and self-challenge. And for me, for the next 5 to 10 years, it's identifying those opportunities and not saying no because they seem too big to achieve. Yeah.
Yes, always ready to step up. I like that.
I like that, not saying no.
You can't say no all the time. There's solutions that we can find. We need to find.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on my side, I feel we have to be multidimensional. I don't know if that's the right word to use. And not view ourselves as accountants, auditors, CAs, whatever. All we are, we are thinkers, we are solution drivers. So that's how I'm seeing myself, evolving, not just being, that chartered accountant who studied this. I'm that to some extent, but all I am really, and what I'm going to be bringing to the table for the next 5 to 10 years it's being a thinker. It's presenting solutions that provide value to people on a day-to-day. As we've been talking now in the previous question, that how is technology, playing a role in our lives, and it's just that ability to to be a thinker, continuously empowering ourselves in order so that we can bring, changing solutions within and outside of our industries.
What insights. Thank you, thank you so much, ladies. Sure, yeah, so much to take in, so much to process. I think from what you both have shared in preparing ourselves for the future, be forward thinking, be solution driven, and think of yourself as a thinker. Don't just box yourself in, and always be ready to say yes, 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 yes. As we're reshaping ourselves as women as well, one of the things that I like is being, how do we then build wealth? We're not known as women globally, even to be the most, the wealthiest person in the world. Not that we want to be the wealthiest person of the world, but I mean, we are career-driven women. We are here today and we're trying to open spaces for women leadership. So we have to talk about money. We have to talk about wealth. Most importantly, how do we build sustainable wealth as women that we can then pass on to also the next generation?
Okay, so I'll speak from, obviously, now that I'm in business, from a business point of view. So what's very key for me, it's actually something that we always shy away from. Sustainability and wealth, it's to involve our families and our children as soon as possible, in every type of wealth generating activities, whether you're in business or in corporate, because ultimately you want to duplicate whatever that you are doing. If you can't duplicate it, it can't grow.
Yeah.
So for me, it's involving my children and family, as much as possible, so that we can all partner up and grow this thing, multi-generational. So it's always a tough one, obviously, involving family, in business or in things that we are doing, but they will just need wisdom, to pick the right people, for the right stage of the business, and slowly start incorporating, other people, because I don't see any other way we can build sustainable wealth if we keep running as, one man show and not, engraving those values, within our families. Because what has prevented us from creating wealth, or building legacy as Black people, it's not because we are not able to start businesses. It's not because we're not able to sustain businesses. And if you look at the history of Mr. Price, I mean, some of these big brands, they look like they've been around for years, but you will be so shocked. Mr. Price was founded in 1985. Same 1985, there was somebody in Township running a clothing shop. But that clothing shop is not there because it was not duplicated. It was being run by one person. There's no transfer of intellectual capital. There's no transfer of skills, to the next generation. So for me, it's about involving family and children as possible.
Sure.
Yeah. I think I'll add, it's exactly that, Thenji. I'll just term it as financial literacy. I think we're quite privileged to be in the profession that we're in and to understand the workings of finances, from a technical perspective. And I think sometimes it's often said that CAs are good at managing other people's money, but not their own. But I think it's because we end up missing the basics of financial literacy. And it's about passing all those values to the kids that we're raising, to our family members around. It's literally the basics. Are you saving something every month? What are you saving into? Is it something sustainable? Are you making your wealth that you're building also work for itself? It's not good enough for it to be sitting in a bank account. What are you doing to grow it outside of the interest rate that the bank is giving you? And understanding what your opportunities and your options are. So educating ourselves, practicing basic financial literacy, and making sure that we're sharing those skills with those around us. I think that's the formula for sustainability. Yeah.
Sure. Wow. That's powerful. So financial literacy is important, as well as duplicating sort of what we have. And it's actually the same, hey, because you're bringing in family and sharing some of the skills that you have, technical skills that you have about money management as well. So yeah, what powerful insights.
And I like this because it's all connected, right? I'm getting this. What you guys are both saying is so integrated. There's this thing that we cannot leave outside of our environment. So we need to consider our families. We need to see how we actually bring everything together to ensure that it's sustainable over time. But just on that, in terms of wealth and funding, right? How do we ensure we position ourselves better as women to earn better, or for our ideas to be funded? And I think one of the key things that most SMEs are complaining about is access to funding. Maybe through your knowledge, are there any funding opportunities out there that people are not utilizing fully? So maybe let's speak to funding in general, but speak to how do we position ourselves to earn better, but as well, what opportunities are there that can be actually taken advantage of?
Maybe I'll tackle funding, and Ropfiwa can tackle the earning one. So, I mean, when it comes to funding, I mean, there's the basics that, you know, every entrepreneur should do, you know, preparing your financial statements, you know, making sure that your books are in order. So that is a very, very basic one. But what I found that has worked very well for myself and other entrepreneurs is to actually get funding from similar organizations in your industry, right? Because sometimes the types of businesses that we run, they are so complex that there's no way a bank is going to understand your business plan, you know? Because a bank wants to see a product. So if you're saying, I'm farming apples, I'm gonna produce X amount, you know, a bank might find you. But now if you're saying I'm running an audit firm, I've got an insurance, a brokerage, you know, for that funding proposal to be understood, it will take you time and you will end up not achieving anything. So my advice would be to align with funding organizations that are already in the industry. So in our case, for example, we've managed to get funding from the insurers because those are the people that understand our business. You know, they understand because in funding, remember, your marketing plan is very key.
Yes.
So with other institutions, they would only understand your marketing plan if it's linked to a product. But in a service environment, because we're selling a service, so for an audit firm, it would be easier for you to get funding from KPMG and SNG, because those people, they understand how your business works. So that will be definitely something that I would encourage other entrepreneurs to explore when they're looking for funding. The second one would be government funding. Actually, there's a lot of funding within government, and let us not be discouraged by the corruption. Okay, there's a lot of money in government that we are not utilizing, and we just prefer to stay away because of what we hear from others and in the newspaper. So we have to start stepping into that government money because it's there, and a lot of it, you know, it's grants. Some of it, you know, you might get a 10 million rand loan and end up 50% grant. So government funding, we are not tapping into it as much as we should be.
Thank you so much for that, Thenji. And then Ropfiwa, in terms of just positioning ourselves as women to earn better, how do we do that?
Sure. Yeah, there's probably two thoughts that come to mind, and your earnings just from your salary, from your day job and what you do. And I think there's room for improvement for us women to sell ourselves better. Thenji mentioned earlier about the pay gap parity. That's still, it's a reality. And some of that is due to factors that are beyond our control. But some of it is due to factors that are within our control. When it comes to performance appraisals, we tend to take the humble approach, the meek and mild, or give me what I deserve. whereas our male counterparts are selling themselves and saying, I deserve this much because have you seen what I've been doing? Meanwhile, you're doing the exact same thing, and you go there with a humble approach. So I think we need to challenge ourselves in that sense, recognize our worth in those conversations, and start challenging our approach to those conversations, and not just go in for, okay, cool, pay me what you can. And also the notion of, I mean, it also comes down to, the time that you have available, etc. Making passive income. It doesn't need to be anything hectic. If you do have the capital resources, go get an investment property. If you have the time on your hand and you've got a slight inclination into going into business, start small, start doing something, sell something, and see and grow your business acumen and your business skills that way, before potentially venturing into business full time one day. So yeah, and I think the other thing that we need to address, or also challenge just as a Black community, is our spending, because we put a lot of pressure on each other, in the sense of defining success. What does success look like in terms of material things, instead of actually defining success in sustainable wealth ways. So you don't have to go buy a flashy car. You don't have to go live in a estate for other people's for reputational sake. Like if you're building your reputation, I mean your wealth, privately, and still driving your Toyota Corolla, it's totally fine. Please rather focus on that wealth and making it a sustainable source of wealth for generations to come.
I like that you remind me of just what we're talking about on having the patience. I think one of the key things is we don't have the patience to just wait it out. Like we want to actually in a year be driving this, in a year, but there's patience we need to build, especially if you're thinking of the next generation of the next generation being other leaders. We need to actually be patient in the process. Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, just to add on what Ropfiwa is saying about how we can earn better. And one of the things that I actually never realized I could do when I was in corporate was to actually negotiate, because I feel we don't negotiate as women, when you get that bonus letter at the end of the year, you just take it. And this is something that I learned from a friend, someone I had befriended in HR, who actually assisted me to query my bonus. And those are some of the things that maybe as women we're not even aware of, that when you get that letter, if you're not happy with it, you can actually engage. Obviously not aggressively, we need also to develop those skills of healthy engagement, but you can actually engage and negotiate these things. If you get 3% increase, you can actually talk to the relevant people to increase that percentage to 7%, especially if story, this is what I've put forward here in this company, this is my value, this is my contribution. So I would say as women, in terms of our earning capacity, negotiation definitely it's a skill that we need to develop and practice.
I want to come in and say, and I think just to echo your point as well, both Thenji and Ropfiwa on just negotiating and talking. But let's keep track of our contribution and value add. Let's not be shy to make it known that this is how I'm adding value. This is what I've done. This is what I've achieved. Because that way you make it known and you constantly reminding people that I'm adding value, but also keeping note as well. Because when you have to sit down for that performance discussion, you need to be ready. Bring your evidence as well to say, this year I've worked on so many projects. Don't wait to be told this is how I think you have done. Also come in and say this with facts as well. I've worked on 6 projects. On this one, this was my contribution. On this one, this is my contribution. It could be little things, it could be big things, It could be support services. Support also holds projects together. So don't demean or belittle your contribution. You need to be mentioning, you have to be adding value, and you need to make it known that you are adding value, however little, however big. But let's be ready to sit in those performance meetings and talk to how we are adding value.
Awesome. All right, just from a legacy, because I think we're here, of course, to just leave something behind. I love this question. Everywhere I go, I always ask it. But what is your legacy in a room of 100 people? What would you want to be known as? What are we leaving behind? Ropfiwa?
Sure. Yeah, that is a very good question. And I think first thing that comes to mind is, as a leader, the impact of what I make, what change um, came about as a direct involvement of my efforts. What change have I driven since I started, since X date? And if I can't pinpoint to a tangible difference that I've made by being present and putting an effort into a certain area of the business or certain things, then I think there's probably quite a bit to think about in terms of the purpose and why you're doing what you're doing. So for me is what change has come about as a result of Ropfiwa being in that position. That's the kind of legacy I want, the type of answer I'd want to be one that is of great worth in that since her arrival, we have changed XYZ. Since her arrival, we've managed to, to retain X number of Black females in the business who are now have prospects of long-term careers in the business. So yeah, that's the difference, making a difference element.
Awesome. Tangible value add. I like
Yeah,
that.
living things better than we found them. Yeah,
Yeah,
impact.
100%.
Yes, impact.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I'm
Tenji.
definitely gonna copy and paste Ropfiwa. Control C, Control V on this one. Definitely that making a positive difference in whatever form it is, because it will be different for each and every person that
All of us.
I interact with as a leader. But yeah, the impact that I want to see is just positive change in the spaces and in the lives of the people that I've interacted with.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, ladies. Impact. Just living things better than we found them. Living things better than we found them. Just in terms of, I guess we're nearing our end and closing. What advice or would you leave the next generation of women listening to us today, or somebody who's looking at you and thinking, "I want to be in their shoes one day"?
Well, I would say it is possible, right? It's possible. Whatever that we want to achieve as women, it is possible. And as I'm growing a little bit older now, one thing that I'm really starting to embrace is that two is better than one. So
Yes.
more collaboration. We need more collaboration. If it means let's merge firms, let's do that. If it means let's back each other on a particular project, particular initiative, let's do that. So yeah, in my mid whatever, two is better than one. Two is better than one. So that's what I want to give to women who want to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Amazing. So it's possible,
Mm.
and two is better than one. Thank you, Ropfiwa. Sorry.
Yeah, I think my one, if I could summarize it into a one-liner, and I'm trying to search my brain for where this came from. I did borrow it from someone, but I can't remember if it was a podcast. Says, "Do it scared." So yes, it's going to appear intimidating. It's going to appear impossible, but do it anyways. Just start and do it. And I think that speaks to the saying yes to opportunities that I spoke to earlier. It will look different for everybody, and for you guys, and I still take my hat off for going into entrepreneurship. That's not easy, and that takes great courage. So it looks different for you, it looks different for me, that might not have the inclination to go into business, and it's okay. But are we actually doing it and challenging ourselves, even though it appears intimidating?
Oh, wow, powerful. Oh my word, powerful. Ladies, thank you so much. Thank you for for coming through and sharing your insights, sharing your wisdom with us today. Thank you for joining hands with Bahaka in inspiring the next generation of leaders. I mean, you guys are already doing so amazing. But we hold hands with you in praying that, of course, you reach all your desires, that God is with you guys and carries you. But thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Lekamosho. Ooh, and we have had some also interactions online. Um, thank you so much for everybody who has joined us today on discussing this amazing topic of the evolution of women in finance. And we're saying women in finance, but really our topic was widespread. It was quite general, and it's just talking to just the evolution of women in general. So thank you, ladies, for looking at the past, the present, and the future. Please join us again next week on the 8th of August as we discuss breaking barriers. How do we now get into those seats? How do we get into those seats? Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ropfiwa,
Thank
Thenji.
you,
Cool.
guys.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye. Bye,
Cheers.
everybody.